Part 7. The deal-breaking errors in references and referencing as discovered by examiners. We conclude our professional development session on academic authorship with integrity by getting real, by getting direct and becoming really, really clear. We are exploring the deal-breaking errors, the errors that undermine your credibility and mean that your thesis will be treated with suspicion and concern rather than respect. In probably the most quoted statement in any writing I've done in my career, I described the bibliography as the canary in the PhD coal mine. So what did I mean? Well, it was a metaphor, but a pretty appropriate one, because miners would carry caged canaries into mine tunnels because the birds would respond to the carbon monoxide before the humans, and the canary would die before the miners. It's actually the same with the bibliography. I know that a thesis is going to meet an untimely end, an untimely result, when I read the reference list. So today, in this part, this final stage in our professional development, here are the 8 key tips, really the 8 key errors that are the canary in the mine of your thesis. When I see these 8 issues, I know we're in trouble. Now, the oddity is these are really straightforward errors, and I'm going to list them for you and explain what they mean. So please remember, the majority of examiners start examining your thesis at the back. We read the reference list first, and I know if you're going to pass or fail from that reference list. It is the canary in the mine of your doctorate. First tip, size of the reference list. The bigger the bibliography or reference list, the more you have read, the harder you have worked, the more expansive your scholarship, the more conclusive your findings. A short reference list shows laziness, unrepresentativeness, and an issue and problem of level, scope, and scale. If you have a reference list more in keeping with an honours or a coursework master's degree or a capstone project, then you will fail your PhD. The reference list must be large and comprehensive. 2. Date of the research in the reference list. There are many reasons we try and help you finish your thesis as quickly as possible. And one is, the longer your candidature goes on, the more dated your reference list appears. It is so common that we see an examiner's report from students that have taken a long time where the examiners note the reference list is dated, because we cannot prove an original contribution to knowledge if we haven't read the current, recent and relevant literature. Because what happens is the research looks tired, the literature review looks dated. You have not demonstrated that you know what is going on in your field today. I always say to my students, and your fields may be different, but I always make sure that at least 1/5 of all of my students' references emerge 2 years before the submission of their doctorate. 3. Incorrect referencing. This is a deal breaker. I see incorrect referencing. I see a PhD student who does not know how to reference and gets the selected style wrong. Yep, it's over. There is no way back from this fundamental error. If you can't reference, then you lack the fundamental academic skill for research. 4. Inconsistent referencing. Students use 2 different styles of referencing in their thesis, so they decide they're going to use Harvard and Chicago footnotes. Why are you doing this? Please pick a style and stick to it. 5. Awkwardly positioned references. This issue is a particular characteristic of the Harvard referencing style. This problem emerges when a student plonks a bracketed reference seemingly arbitrarily into a particular point in their prose. So always ask yourself, what is the relationship between the sentences and the paragraph you have written and the positioning of your reference? Few things make me crazier in life than a bracketed Harvard reference at the end of a paragraph. And I just can't see the relationship between the prose and the reference. So here's a paragraph, and I've just plonked a reference at the end of that paragraph. So please explain your reference, interpret your reference. References should never be left to speak for themselves. 6. The blind spot bibliography. Oh yeah. So this problem emerges during the first reading of a reference list or a bibliography by an examiner. And what we see is particular scholars are overrepresented to the detriment of others. So the obsessions of either the student or the supervisor are revealed, and this is patchy research and it's unrepresentative. Often, inexperienced supervisors create this problem. They have a particular fixation on a particular approach or theory or theorist or methodology, and they pretty sadly drag their student into their obsession. But of course, the examiners want something different. We want balance. We want you to make an argument. Explain to us, why are you using a particular method or theory? Why? And what other alternatives are available? I see this problem emerge in reference lists where references cluster around one name. And often it was a pretty famous name, but a famous name from 10 or 15 or 20 years ago. The debates have moved on, and the names of the scholars who have moved on those debates are not in your bibliography. So as you can see, the cultish obsession with one scholarly method or one approach, that is a problem. We all must make the argument. We must not assume the argument. 7. Lack of diversity in sources. We've never had so much information, high quality information, as right now. We've never had such a diversity of platforms to carry research as we do right now. So when I see a reference list that does not move around the diversity of possible source materials, then it shows a lack of research skills. So a domination of books, a domination of black literature, a domination of refereed articles from a finite number of journals, not working between analogue and digital relationships and platforms. And I don't see any podcasts, I don't see any videos, I don't see any conference proceedings, grey literature. There's nothing there that's unusual or interesting or quirky. Now, when these types of sources are shown and revealed in a bibliography, it demonstrates completeness. It demonstrates high-level information literacy skills and multimodality. 8. Eurocentrism. If a student has another form of citation black spot, and this black spot has many meanings in this context, it is a focus on the US, Canada, and British authors and researchers, ignoring the rest of the world, which of course also includes the bulk of the world's population, the bulk of the world's universities. Neocolonialism lives in academia and in academic publishing, and I give major credit to students who have sought out new and emerging researchers, journals and research. And I'm very impressed when multiple languages have been accessed, even in translation. It is a big, glorious, scholarly world out there, and it's much larger than Europe and North America. Be a scholar of the world. Cite the world. 9. Warped perspective. The point of research is transparency, accountability and repeatability. These three goals are undermined when your bibliography is warped into a particular direction. You've often heard me say what we don't talk about is often more important than what we do talk about. And in many ways, I developed that maxim after reading Bruno Latour and his famous book, Science in Action, How to Follow Scientists and Engineers Through Society. Latour stated, quote, "The presence or the absence of references, quotations and footnotes is so much a sign that a document is serious or not that you can transform a fact into fiction or fiction into a fact by just adding or subtracting references. End of quote. How we cut up and erase the literature is profoundly serious for all disciplines. If you intentionally or unintentionally skew your references, examiners will see it. And most of us, when we do see it, will summon that quotation from Latour and notice that you're trying to transform a fact into fiction or a fiction into fact. You've heard me describe doctoral examination as a dark art, and it is. But a recent study by Golding et al. In the journal Assessment and Evaluation in Higher Education confirmed that although examiners approach every thesis wanting it to pass, their first impressions very quickly change their mind. Further, they show that when an examiner finds referencing errors, they read the entire thesis more critically. Because if those simple errors are made, what else is going wrong with it? So when we address these errors, we are allowing you as a researcher to verify and demonstrate that as a researcher, you are not limited by your errors. Because it is a privilege to research. Research is built on the academic foundations of reading and writing, thinking and reflecting, note-taking and synthesizing, building and developing. If a significant original contribution to knowledge is to be created, it is built on the solid foundations of academic and research integrity. Thank you so much for accompanying me through this training session. I wish you every future success, and I look forward to talking with you soon.